Hi, welcome back to another edition of the Coach's Corner. With me, as always, Clayton Holford, but we also have a special guest from the show. We got Ned, who is a 49ers fan, and so talking about today's preview between the 49ers and Cardinals. Ned, what are you looking for in this game? How do you see this game going? What do you think the 49ers are going to look like in the future?
Yeah, so kind of a couple things looking for the game. I mean, one part of me wants to see us go up in the draft stocks and probably wouldn't be too hurt. But at the same time, man, I mean, the 49ers, we had a long losing streak to the Cardinals. And I know there's some bad blood after week one, and I'm sure that the guys are going to be coming hard this year. So it's going to be tough. Nick Mullins was ruled out probably for the rest of the year. So CJ Beathard is probably expected to start. The talk is Jimmy Garoppolo may still get activated by the end of the year, and same with George Kittle. Common sense says 49ers are eliminated. Probably not going to see much of those guys, if any. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how some of these guys, further down on the depth chart, really get a chance to perform. Deebo Samuel's injured again, so you've got Brandon Ayuk stepping up. A couple of those guys, have a chance to really show out, make a name for themselves going into next season.
Fair enough. Hey, Clayton, what's your opinion on the game?
Yeah, Ned kind of addressed some of the things I was going to ask him. I know the Broncos were eliminated a long time ago, so whenever I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, it does suck to take the lumps on the chin, and getting punched in the face. You can only take it for so long before you're like, please God, make it stop. But we kind of are looking for positives. I was going to kind of pick Ned's brain about what are some guys. You mentioned Brandon Ayuk. I definitely think that's a guy you guys could build off of for the future. He looks electric with the ball in his hands. Phenomenal athlete. Obviously, we know Deebo runs hard. But you look at guys like Kendrick Bourne and Richie James, it doesn't really look like they've separated themselves on the depth chart enough to, maybe if they drafted a replacement that you say, oh, man, what about Richie James?
I like Bourne,
and then
though.
Defensively, Bourne plays physical, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But has Kendrick Bourne done enough to warrant not drafting maybe in the later rounds?
He's a depth guy. I don't think that he's a guy that you really rely on. Like, let's say it's a third down, you need a clutch play. I mean, I don't think you rely on him there, but I think he does add quality depth.
Yeah, and look,
Sure.
I think when you're talking 49ers, especially your third down guys, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. Those are two guys who've been injured.
Exactly.
So third down's been a struggle this year. Kendrick Bourne is a guy that he will make a superstar catch in the end zone, and then he will drop a 5-yard slant. So he's just that guy that he is not trusted, he's not reliable, but he's a guy that the fans love, man. And same with Richie James. He's an electric returner. He's a great guy. I mean, I forget which game it was earlier in the year, but he showed out with about 170 receiving yards when no one else was there. He's a guy who can step up. But I think you're right, Clayton. He hasn't really separated himself from the pack, and I don't think these last couple of games are really going to change that. Bourne was on a 1-year deal this year. I think there's a possibility he comes back next year. But, I mean, you're talking about guys, they've got to rebuild their entire secondary next year, a lot of their defensive line as well. So guys are potentially playing for a contract. DJ Jones, Ronald Blair, both on the defensive line. You've got Emmanuel Mosley and Akella Witherspoon are two guys that are in the contract year. There's a chance that they, bring back one or none. Jason Verrett, he went down with an injury last week, but again, another guy I think they're really high on bringing back. Richard Sherman, obviously, I think we've all heard the news, is probably not going to be returning just due to salary cap. So they've got a lot to rebuild there, and you need at least probably one or two corner pieces to work from. So I think that these last two games against, the Cardinals and Seahawks are big for those depth guys trying to play themselves into a new contract, Do
you think that knowing that if you're a team that has the number one overall pick, the Jets, prime example, a lot of fans are rooting for them to, obviously lose the game so they can get Trevor Lawrence. But if you're not in that position where you're a quarterback needy team that is in the position to draft Trevor Lawrence or, whoever the quarterback is it nice as a fan playing spoiler to another team? Like, especially a division rival, like let's say, win in your end scenario, it even though you might move, get a higher draft pick, isn't it kind of nice just being able to play that spoiler?
Yeah, I think, especially if you're talking about moving down from 11 where they are right now to say 14 or 15. In a deep draft like this, you're probably not going to lose a lot of capital for what you're looking for, especially in the Niners case, some of the big needs, they could be picking at 16, 18. I, as a fan, would love nothing more than to win out the last 2 games and play spoiler to both the Cardinals and the Seahawks. There's never a bad year if you only win those games, So it reminds me of a season a few years back when we only won 2 games and both were against the Rams, and I couldn't have been happier. That's great. So, yeah.
Do you think some of those guys that and I'm assuming that Robert Saleh gets an NFL coaching job. I think it's his time. I know probably as a 49ers fan, you're probably like, he deserves it. I'd feel happy for him, but you kind of want him back. But do you think some of these guys like, Richard Sherman would follow Robert Saleh? Do you think you're also kind of competing against that?
I don't think so. At least not, Richard Sherman. I think Richard Sherman is very much his own man. He's going to find a position where he's going to be able to play the kind of football that he wants to play, that zone kind of cover one side of the field. But he's also playing for money. I mean, he's sitting as a year 32 season. He wants to, get paid, retire a healthy man. I don't know that there's necessarily going to be some key cornerstone guys, but you're certainly going to get depth. And I think you saw that when Shanahan took over the 49ers. He brought in guys like blanking on the names.
Juszczyk, and then he brought in I think Hoyer and Robbie Gold. I think were the 3 big ones. Yeah.
Brian Hoyer's name just always escapes me. That kind of guy.
He's that guy.
But he brought in some of his depth receivers from even back in his Cleveland days, his Falcons days, his Washington days. So I think that you're probably going to get some depth guys like that, particularly along the defensive line. We've got a few guys who are just on 1-year deals. So I don't think it's necessarily competing against that as much as I think that Shanahan and Saleh in particular have these guys fired up and ready to play every single week.
It's a very valid point. Very, very valid point. So I guess what's your prediction for this game? What's key to the 49ers winning this game? What could possibly lose them the game? And how do you think it's going to turn out?
Yeah, so I think, and I know we talked mostly about the 49ers, but we really got to focus on the Cardinals. They're in a position for a wild card spot at the moment. I think they are a very outside chance maybe for the division. I'm not sure if they've lost that yet, but, they've got everything to play for at this stage. It's a home game for them, regardless of whether it was a home and away for us, us playing out of Arizona. I think that the Cardinals win this game. I think even when we were at full strength earlier in the season with Garoppolo, Kittle, Bosa, all of those guys, we were just a little bit, I think Super Bowl hangover kind of hit to them. We look at the side that we have now. I think that we don't have the speed in the secondary to compete with some of their receivers and their, spread offense. Their run game killed us last time, and we're only worse on the interior defensive line this time. I think the key for the 49ers, though, to actually steal this game is to have Beathard, keep the ball, not turn it over, play sound football, have a guy like, Jeff Wilson step up and really take the lead carry. Guys like Jet McKinnon and Tevin Coleman haven't really stepped up into that role this year. So it'd be good if they can have at least a 2-headed beast running out there and no drops on the receivers. If they can play smart football, that West Coast offense is take 5, 6 at a time, break one big every now and then, but no turnovers, keep it sound, keep it safe.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that as I'm listening to Ned talk, Ned works with us on the draft team, Justin, and I think it's so interesting that as he's breaking down, his favorite team, this is the respect that Kyle Shanahan just commands from not only around the league, but just moderate football junkies like us, that we recognize that even with, we're talking about Kendrick Bourne, Richie James, all these guys, it's we know Shanahan's going to find a way and use them perfectly to their capability. He's just a rare offensive mind. And so whenever we're sitting here what are you looking for, Ned? I was just I just couldn't help but laugh to myself that it's all on the defensive side of the ball. It's you know what? Honestly, Kyle Shanahan could take 2 papayas and a shovel out there and probably put up 10 points on a couple, on top defense. It's that's how good of an offensive mind he is. He understands how to block people. I know whenever he's got time to script it out, his offense is near unstoppable. We saw that in the first, going through the playoffs. I mean, he was just the first drive of the game when he could script it out. He was just shredding people. And I think I just can't get over just how incredible it is. Nobody knows the 49ers better than Ned is. And even Ned's not worried about whoever they line up on offense because it's just Shanahan's going to take care of it. I'm more worried about who's going to play defense for us next year?
Yeah.
He gets it from his dad. You know, I mean, you talk about Mike Shan. I mean, you as a Broncos fan, Clayton, with Terrell Davis. I mean, you know, he got Terrell Davis right. And then going back to the Washington football team days, I mean, you know, Alfred Morris was a guy that nobody really knew who he was. But then as soon as he got into that system, you know, people are like, you know, this guy's a pretty darn good running back, and he's still in the NFL. So it's just a credit to that system. And I think Kyle's done a great job of building upon just what he's learned at every stop he's made, but kind of keeping his core offense, just adapting to today's game.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that really speaks to Shanahan is you look at this is his third losing season in San Francisco. He's got himself a big fat, 6-year extension on top of his contract. And I mean, you go back to 2017, 2018, when everything was going wrong for these guys, no one in the locker room would have told you that they were a losing franchise. And that's what I think is probably the biggest thing for Shanahan, is that he keeps everyone level-headed, he keeps everyone focused, and no one loses faith. You know, you see some of these franchises where the guys are broken by week 5 when everything starts going wrong. And that's why I trust Shanahan. You know, you put him in any situation. And, we've had games this year against the Packers where we had to elevate like 2 practice squad guys to start at receiver, and we still managed to put up 17 points. You know, like, he's just the sort of guy that, as you said, Clayton, put anything out there, he'll find a way to pull blood out of a stone. But at the end of the day, you know, it's a whole team sport, and we've been gashed on defense at times this year. I think they've done an exceptional job despite that. But I think Kyler Murray in this situation is just probably a little bit too dynamic, even though they've struggled on both sides of the ball. I think that they find a way to right the ship when everything's on the line.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you think we got something wrong, don't be afraid to leave us some comments in the comment section. If you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bells, and thanks for tuning in.